Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video I'm going to be wire wrapping this little marble here that you see dangling. Kind of looks like a little light bulb, doesn't it? And this video is good for round stones. So if you have a marble or a little pearl or just a stone that's round, it can even be a bead. We're not going to use it like a bead. We're not going to put wire, through it, because mine is not a bead, but it could. Anything round can be wrapped in this manner. So if you want to see how I did this, just keep watching. The wire I'm going to be using is square copper wire. Mine is from Rio Grande, and it is 21 gauge. The length of the wires, I'm going to use 3 pieces, and they measure about 9 inches, 23 centimeters. This is my little marble. It's really small, so if yours is bigger, just use 20 gauge wire instead of 21. And it's really hard for me to measure, but because it's round, I can't lay it flat, but I think it's about 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter. I think that's what it looks like to me when I'm trying to just kind of hold it next to my ruler. And then for the thinner connecting wire, I'm just using half round in 24 gauge. You can also use 22 gauge. So I'm just putting the 3 wires together, and because they are square, they all kind of stack and line up together nicely like this. Let me zoom in a little bit. So they have flat sides because they're square, and you just want to line them up. So for example, like this, hold on, I'm trying to get it to be not lined up to show you. Like this, it's not really lined up, but if you just kind of push with your fingers and smooth them out, they just naturally line up, and their flat sides just kind of naturally stack together. And so you just want to grab in the middle of the 3 wires, and then you want to take your 24 gauge, this is connected to the spool, and take a tail end of it to start wrapping, and just go like this, around and around, flat side down, the half round side up. And then if you run out of this and you need to work on the piece that's connected to the spool, you can't just turn it around and around. You have to guide it with your hand and then turn the 3 wires, because otherwise it'll get twisted. All right, so once you're done with that, you just want to trim your wires and leave just a tiny little end for both of them on the same side. So this is the side that I have selected. So here are my wire ends. They're both on this side here. You can see it's sticking up. So I would just take my pliers and I would just fold that little end down, and I would fold the other little end down, and I would just press over the whole thing like this. So the wire ends are here facing me, and we're going to cover them up because they're going to be touching the stone. So what you want to do is you want to make a little curve, and inside of the curve are the wire ends, and here on the outside is smooth, because this is the part that's going to be visible. So then the hardest part is to shape this around your stone or marble, because you can't really lay it flat on a table since it won't lay flat because it's rounded. So you just have to try your best to shape it. One thing that sometimes happens is that this starts to have like a tilt to it. See how this is tilted and not flat? And that can make it a little more difficult. So I'm just taking my pliers and I'm fixing it. So like this, from the side, it's going kind of straight and doesn't have an angle in it. And I'm just holding my marble and I'm shaping, so the marble is staying put because of the tension. I'm just shaping the wire around it. As you can see, this isn't centered right here. This needs to go over this way, but we can move that. It's easy to move it. Since the frame is coming together nicely, I'd rather just move that little wrap. So I'm just using my fingers to put bends. So I'm bending down and then I'm bending up to put these little bends in the wires and bring them together. Now you want to make sure your wires are still stacked together nicely, and then they're going to stack on top of the other side. So you're going to have 3 wires and 3 wires, just all kind of stacking together like this. Now we can go ahead and move this little wrap. Sometimes you can just push on it. If you're pushing and it doesn't work, try moving a few at a time like this. That usually tends to work. And then you can also, if they got, separated in that process, you can bring them together by using your pliers. There we go. So here's my little frame. Here's the little wraps, the marble. And what I want to do now is connect these wires here, these 3 and these 3. So to do that, I'm taking my 24 gauge wire again, and I'm just wrapping around. So again, I have a little tail end that I grabbed, and I'm wrapping around just a few times to connect. And then I'm putting it through the middle here. And here it is coming out the other side. And then you just want to grab it and just kind of pull on it. We will trim it off. I'm going to trim it off a little later because what I want to do first is I want to lock my stone in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting the marble in, and I'm trying to just have it be so the wire is kind of in the middle of it like this. And then I'm taking these wires, just kind of the side wires here, and I'm trying to separate them out a little bit like this. And I'm doing that on each side. You can do it with your pliers. Just try not to put like a bend in them, because with pliers it's easier to put like a sharp bend. So I'm just doing it with my fingers. So now the marble is a little bit more stable. And what I'm going to do is these 2 wires, these first 2 wires at the top, they are the same wires that are here on the side. So if you follow this very first wire along, it's going here, 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 and then here it is. And then same thing with that one. So what I'm going to do is very gently, and I'm actually going to grab the very top of the wire, because that way when my pliers leave a mark, it's not going to be a mark like here where it's going to be visible. We're probably going to trim our wires, and this end is going to get trimmed off anyways. So we're just pulling on it, pulling on both of them, just the ends there. And let me kind of zoom out all the way here. So I'm holding my piece, here's my little marble, and I'm just pulling just very gently and carefully, little bit at a time. You don't want to pull really hard and just yank that wire and just really misshape that. So now I'm taking my fingers and I'm bringing these wires closer together by just pinching them like this with this kind of motion. I'm bringing them more onto my marble like that. And now just to tighten them up, I'm pulling on these wires again, and that just kind of tightens that up. And that will hold the marble, because you can see the marble can't come out because the wire is here on the front of it. So we're just going to do the same thing on the back. So just try to like bring these 2 together as much as you can with your fingers, just kind of pinching them this way. And then when you pull on the wire, just make sure you do the right wire here. When you pull, it'll tighten that up for you. So I'm just grabbing the very end and I'm just pulling on it. So that just tightens it up. You might have to just kind of play around with it a tiny bit to make sure it gets all nice and symmetrical. All right, so that's looking good for me. So I'm back here to the front side of my pendant, and now I can pull on this wire again. I didn't want to trim it earlier because sometimes it moves out of place when you do all this other stuff. So now I can trim that off. Here's the front of my piece. I'm going to use my pliers here at this top part just to push it together a little bit. And then these two wires that are in the front that we pulled on, I'm just going to push them forward like this because they're going to be my bail. And then the other wires, I'm just not going to push them too much. I'm just going to very carefully bend them just a little bit out of my way. So I'm going to continue with this half round wire, and I'm going to start to wrap it around these two wires for my bail now. So you just want to do this for a little bit so that it's a good height for your bail. You might want a smaller bail or a bigger bail, depending on the necklace that has to fit through it, or depending on just your personal preference of what you think looks good. So I'm just going to do just exactly what I'm doing now. Guide it with one hand and just twist the piece with the other hand. Just be careful. Sometimes the wire will start to twist like it is right now, and then you just want to fix that before you wrap that around, or it's going to look incorrect. So if there's ever just a natural twist in your wire, just make sure that you fix it and turn it so it's the rounded part facing you and then the flat part facing down, and the flat part is what's wrapping around those wires. So once it's tall enough, you just want to trim your wire here on the back of the bail, and then you just want to use your pliers to press down that little wire end, and then I like to just go over the whole bail with my pliers and just press down on all of it like this. All right, let's just make sure that it's facing the right way, and let me zoom out a little bit. So what I'm going to do now with these 4 wires is I'm just going to put them to the side. So I'm putting them to the right side like this. By the way, here's what it looks like from the bottom. So with our bail, I'm just going to start bending it into the shape of my bail, and then I'm taking the ends and I'm putting it through this gap here right above the stone, this little gap. So I'm pushing them through. At some point it becomes too difficult with my hands, and I just have to grab my pliers so that I can move the bail into the correct positioning. And then here's those wires coming out the front. Just gonna kind of pull on them. So here they are. Zoom in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push them back so that I can connect my bail and finish off the wires. So here they are. That's the front. This is the back. And here on the back, I'm just going to trim them, but leave a little end so that we can tuck that end away. Here's what that looks like. Here's a little end sticking out. So then you just take your pliers and you tuck the end inside, and then you just press down to push it in. And because it's just a short little end, it's not going to reach the front. So it won't be sticking out the front, and it's hidden on the back as well because you've pushed it in. So this part is all smooth, and it kind of looks almost the same as the front looks, is all smooth. So now you're left with these 4 wires. I kind of pushed them over on this one side for the decoration that I'm going to be doing. But of course you kind of have the freedom here to do whatever you want with these 4 wires. If you want to make swirls or like do a different design that you've seen in another video, you can feel free to do that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to line them up. So just with my fingers, I'm kind of pushing on them. I know they don't line perfectly here in the beginning, but I'm just trying to line them up nicely so that the 4 of them are just kind of stacked together. It's kind of tricky to do here in the very beginning because they're not, you know, they're coming out of different spots. But then what I'm gonna do is try to wrap them as tightly as I can. So like this, they're going to the back. I'm gonna keep it nice and tight though, so that they're not like sticking out, you know? And then I'm just following that along. Okay, here we are in the front, trying to keep them lined up. Keep going with it. It's okay if your bail starts to bend. See how mine is going to the side? We can fix that later, it's fine. So just focus on the wires, focus on them staying together and staying lined up. All right, so now I'm going around again. So what I want to do is I want these wires to come right underneath. Like I don't want there to be a space between these, and then when they come around and they go around again, I want them to be just right up against them. So just kind of adjusting them so that occurs. See how they're going right under? So here they are swooping across the front, right underneath themselves, and then just going to the back again. Now I'm gonna tuck them away. I'm gonna trim them. And just exactly what we did with the bail pretty much. Leave myself just a little end to tuck away. Let's see if I can cut all 4 at the same time. Oh wow, that worked out well. And now, whatever is easier for you to do multiple or one at a time, what I'm going to do is just kind of bend them in the right direction all together. But then when I'm pushing them, it's easier for me if I'm holding it like this upside down, and then I'm doing 1 wire at a time. So that was the first wire. That was the second one. 2 more left. Okay, 1 more. You can always go back to any one of them and push them down more. So I'm just trying to do them all at least a little bit, and then I'll go back and see if any need to be adjusted. This very bottom one is the hardest. Seems to be the hardest for me to really get in there with. There we go. I think I got that one now. So just kind of going over all of them, making sure they're all pushed in there. So you're not going to see any wire ends from this side. But this is the front of it, so you can fix your bail so that it's not bent if it got bent. And you have this nice little side swooping look, and then the marble actually can turn in here. So it's a little bit of a fidget toy as well. But it's not going to pop out because it's being held really well by the wires. If you look this way, see, they're just really trapping it in, like it can't possibly fit through this area, which is much smaller than the width of the marble. So that's it. That's the little spinny marble pendant. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.